Hey folks, Brandon Vigliarolo with the Register, and I'm here today with Rob Carey, former Principal Deputy CIO at the Pentagon and now President of Government Solutions at Cloudera, to talk about how the federal government has been doing with Biden's executive order on artificial intelligence responsible use since it was enacted in October. Rob, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Brandon.
Right. So, this was signed back in October. And it covered a lot more than just government use of AI, right? But we're just going to specifically focus on that today because this was a pretty broad EO. And, as is the case, I think a lot of times with, at least that I've read in a lot of this AI legislation and rules that have been passed lately, it's pretty generic, pretty general, right? There's a lot of things in there about safe deployment, responsible use, and the like, but not a lot of specifics. And I'm starting to wonder sometimes as I'm reading these rules if there's not a lot of specifics in them because the specifics don't exist yet. And I'm kind of wondering, right, 180 days on from this order, do you think the government's done a good job? Have they managed to define some of these specifics and get them implemented?
I think, Brandon, a good question, because you read it. It's fairly long. The executive order is fairly long. It covers a set of topics that I thought were already covered by other existing orders, but they sort of tied AI into the same language that might be tied under another subject, just to make sure that responsible use in that operational area was covered. So, I mean, there was a purpose for it, but it made reading it longer and maybe seemed broader and less specific. So I think that the government is running at this quickly, right? There are hundreds and hundreds of opportunities to implement artificial intelligence. The most populous of which is likely the chatbots, right? To create a language learning model that enables better answers when you're using automated attendants, better and faster answers to then save money, right? So that one's an obvious place where people are dipping their toes. And then you can extrapolate that out into what the Defense Department would do with that, what would Justice do with that. There's lots of individual use cases, but the core technology is about the same. So the EO really did provide some guardrails, right? That would allow the agencies to pretty broad opportunities to explore, but also not, it didn't constrain them too much. I mean, these are obvious. The EO created a lot of what I would call obvious guardrails, right?
Right.
And so I thought that was helpful in a way, but suffice to say that this also placed a focus on data, right? So data became front and center. You can't do AI without having trusted data aligned, organized, served up, and ready to be used in support of these decisions that you want to make with the artificial intelligence engines that exist. So there's a lot of investment being made, and the investment is skyrocketing right now, as far as I'm concerned. Results are popping out slowly, but it is a very capable set of technologies that can produce results that now has the administration's support, but also for, hey, keep it on the up and up. Don't let it, get out of hand. And of course, that's pretty obvious that we wouldn't do that. But suffice to say that that's how the EO popped.
So do you think, but in terms of defining what it means by safe and responsible AI, do you think that the EO, has put government agencies in a position to do that properly? Because it doesn't necessarily seem to define safe, or it just kind of says, well, we're going to leave NIST to make these regulations, or we're going to make sure we're going to delegate this responsibility for these organizations and these government agencies to define what means safe and responsible AI. Has that been defined for the most part, you think, and satisfactorily?
I think so. I think if you read, every agency now has a chief data officer. Every agency now has a data plan for the most part. And it's either enveloped in their information technology strategic plan, or they have their own data plan. So AI sort of falls out of that to make sure that, hey, what are you doing with this? You're not doing this for nefarious means. You're doing this to support the mission of the department. So it's kind of a duh statement, but it needed to be said to make sure that, hey, we're not doing this to get into taxpayers' bank accounts when they don't pay, right? We are using this to help detect fraud in IRS submissions, tax submissions. So two different ways of looking at the same result. I need to improve the credibility of the tax returns that are brought in. We can collect the money and run the government, right? I'm not reaching into somebody's bank account. I'm reaching into the analyzing the returns and producing better, more qualified, trusted answers out the other side.
Right, right. So it's a data question more than anything, really. A safe, responsible use of data, and that as opposed to like a AI implementation thing so much, right?
That's correct. And your AI outputs are only as good as your trusted data inputs, right? So
Right.
it goes without saying. Now, the data could be in the cloud, the data could be anywhere, and that's really the conundrum for a CIO or a CDO is where's the data that I want or that I need to make this decision that I want to use AI for, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so again, the more data, the more broader the data set you use that's applicable, likely the better result you will get, the more well-rounded thought piece you'll get.
Right, right. So I guess, we have had implementations of AI in the government already, right? It's like not like this is something that hasn't happened yet. There are instances where it's been used, right? Like we have it being used for law enforcement. They've been using AI to do things like, image recognition, real-time identification. We've also had cases of it being used, for like Medicare qualification statements, right? There's also been complaints in both those cases that these were being done unfairly, that the AIs were biased, or that they're, causing false positives, or in the Medicare case, that they were, using non-specific patient information to make these determinations because the system itself just wasn't set up to do this in a proper way, right? Do you think that are agencies that have already deployed AI in certain instances, are they using this EO to go back and reevaluate their prior, implementations to see, right? Like, are we going to find ourselves caught in one of these situations if we don't identify it early?
So any model, and remember, machine learning's been around a very long time. Machine learning is AI. So any model that you create that you believe is giving you repeatable outputs, right, based upon the inputs, and you test it and you validate that it is giving me information back within the upper and lower control limits of what my expectations are, right? And so when we start to run the model more broadly outside of the test information, the test data that's feeding it, do some things sort of go out of whack, and they show up in the press and see the model's not right. So most of the the IT departments will look at where the anomalies are flying out and try to correct them along the way, right? You cannot have these models producing bad information for the agency that is implementing them, whether it is, like you said, police or healthcare data or fraud detection, you name it. They want it to be as accurate as it can be. And so I think that the EO doesn't force people to go back. Did we get that right? They're trying to get it right right out of the chute. They don't have time to iterate this. They want to put it out, get it right. Now, does the EO give them the ability maybe to get some additional funds and make it even better? The answer would be yes.
Yeah. So I guess that basically raises the question of, do you think that the EO has, have you seen government agencies picking this up, running with it, deciding to adopt this model that the EO proposes for government AI use and responsible use of data? I mean, has this been, have people greeted this willingly, or has there been some resistance to it?
There's always resistance, right? There's always a resistance to any direction from any administration. But the fact is, the administration realizes the power of this tool, which is great. The Congress recognizes the power of the tool. So now the need for the guardrails is important. It really is. So now the investments that are being made, there's money being appropriated in defense, in intel, in the civilian world, in state and local governments to harness this tool and make it worthwhile for an agency X that wants to use it. So does the EO facilitate that? I think it provided guardrails for things that are already going on, is my opinion. They were already jumping in because it's a technology train that moves really fast. No one's waiting for the EO to get on the train. Now they're shaping the investments that they're making into what the EO has called for.
Well, good. So you think it's basically putting a lot of these government agencies, maybe nipping bad action in the bud and putting them on the right track?
I wouldn't say it that way. I would say it's providing them the guardrails of what the administration expects within the executive agencies of the government. So I would tell you that it's not getting them on track, but if they happen to be operating outside of the envelope that is portrayed, they understand they have actions to take. That makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Well, I hope that you're correct, and that this will continue to be the sort of thing that agencies adopt safe, responsible use of AI as we go forward. Because like you said, it's not going anywhere. It's an emerging technology. We're already investing, and this train is not going to slow down. So,
Correct.
Right?
As I said, the technology train is in a Acela, right? It just gets faster and faster.
Yep. All right, Rob. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with me about this today. I hope, next time we talk to you, we're looking at further implementation of this in more agencies on the right path.
Awesome, Brandon. Thank you so much for having me.